Jannik and Carlos really only gave us a month, a single month, to recover from that classic Roland Garros final before treating us to a second Alcaraz Slam final. The two superstars will face off for the Wimbledon singles title after splitting the year's first two majors. Can Alcaraz pull off the three-peat at SW19, or will Sinner get his redemption and end Carlitos' Wimbledon reign? Hello, my name is Christian Bassnight, and welcome to Christian's Quote, where I cover tennis from all angles. If you have not yet already, make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell so you're notified whenever I post new content. So that's the first men's semifinal of the day at Wimbledon. Did not disappoint. Carlos, he took down Taylor Fritz 6-4, 5-7, 6-3, 7-6. One so-so service game from Fritz to start the match really made the difference in the opening set. And Carlos just came out sharper of the two, and he was ready to play. He was rewarded for it, and he broke right off the bat and did not look back in the opening set. And Carlos did say, I think after his quarterfinal win over Cam Norrie, that something for him clicked on serve during his fourth round match against Andrei Rublev, and it's been clicking ever since then. And he was unthreatened throughout the entire opening set on his serve, as he won 15 out of 15 points behind his first serve. Alcaraz also started to be, now Alcaraz, he did start to be a little bit more error prone towards the end of the first set and the early part of the second set, as he started to miss quite a few more second serve returns as well. And Fritz, you can see from the stats, he benefited from that tremendously in set number two. He won 74% of his second serve points. Fritz won 73% of his second serve points compared to Carlos's 36% success rate behind his second serve, which says a lot. And Carlos's forehand, I think it was also off throughout most of the second set, but he was still able to hold on until that 5-6 game where Fritz, he just rose to the occasion this time around, and I think he learned his lesson from his earlier missed opportunities, and he broke Alcaraz at love, who played a sloppy game to get broken to lose the second set. The third set now was similar to the first set in how Fritz opened playing sort of a shaky service game, which Carlos took advantage of, broke, and once again, Carlos was just so supreme on his serve, on his first serve at least. He won 100% of his first serve points in the third set as well. And the thing about Carlos is that he served smart throughout this match. He not only hit his spots well, but he also utilized the body serve to a great effect against Fritz. And that was very intelligent because he was able to jam the American quite a few times, especially on that backhand side. Now, Fritz, he did have some early openings in the early part of this fourth set. He had a love 30 lead in, I think, Alcaraz's first service game, but some errant forehands did him in. Now, flash forwarding to the tiebreaker, because that's when things really hit the fan. Carlos, he opened with a 4-1 lead, and I thought that he would just run away with the tiebreaker. But Fritz, he impressed me a lot, and he did his job, made his first serves. Meanwhile, Carlos did not. Carlos missed a few first serves, and Taylor took full advantage. And he also took more chances during this part of the tiebreaker, taking more balls up the line, especially off that backhand wing, and he was rewarded for it. And he won 5 points in a row to come within a point away from winning the fourth set twice. He had 2 set points, being up 6-4 in the fourth set breaker. The first set point that he missed, he had a backhand opportunity to really do something. It was a sort of a mid-court backhand. He hit it cross-court, but that cross-court did not pull Carlos nearly wide enough at all, and he was ultimately burned. Now, the second one, Fritz had a very good return, got it right back deep on Carlos, and he had a mid-court ball opportunity. He just needed a little bit more angle on that inside-out forehand to, again, draw Carlos more wide. Then at the 6-all point, he put himself in great position with the return, another strong return, but he just did not do enough at all with that forehand approach, didn't move Carlos. And if you're going to come up against the best in the world, you got to do something better than this. And he was burned once again. But I have to give so many props to Carlos, because he impressed me with how clutch he was. I thought for sure this match was going to 5 sets, and I thought that ultimately Carlos would squeak it out in 5 regardless, but still for him to be able to close this match out in 4 sets, he's beating he makes life harder for himself allegations, at least right now. So that was really impressive that he was able to kind of rein it in and win those last 4 points of the match. So clutch to him. I also got to give credit, even though he lost, of course, to Taylor Fritz. I think he was impressive, not only in this match, but this entire tournament. I was namely impressed by how well he came through those 2 tough 5-setters against the big serving French-speaking light skins, Giovanni and Petri Petitcard and Gabriel Diallo. I thought that Diallo would beat him. So for him to come through and make the semifinals, he should be very proud of himself for that. Of course, he wanted to win the title, but still, he'll be okay with this semifinal loss. And he literally was a point away from pushing the current grass GOAT, Carlos Alcaraz, to 5 sets. That's a great omen. And Fritz has talked about how grass is his favorite surface, and I think that he showed that he can win Wimbledon one day. And I also think that Taylor gave a really sound and solid analysis when talking about facing Alcaraz and also Sinner. He said, "I'd say I felt pretty comfortable from the ground with Jannik when we played in Turin. I think Jannik typically has a bigger serve, so it's tougher to get in on his return games. For me, from the ground, I think I had more success rallying and playing with Jannik because he plays a bit flatter, and it's a little bit more predictable. He's unbelievable at what he does from playing from the baseline. I think Carlos is a little bit more unpredictable with the slicing and the coming to the net and the drop shots. Carlos has a lot of different ways to play. I also think Carlos, one thing he does, when he whips his forehand cross, there's a lot of movement away, which is difficult. Jannik is more through the court. I think for me, it's a little more uncomfortable for me to play Carlos just because of the unpredictability of what he's going to do. I think I play a lot off anticipation." Really accurate from Fritz. No notes there. Side note, before I move on to talking about the Sinner Djokovic semifinal, what is with all these fans passing out during Wimbledon? They passed out like twice. I don't know if it was the same fan, but we have multiple interruptions during this Fritz Alcaraz semifinal. This has to be like the 10th time we've seen this. We saw this in the women's semifinal between Sabalenka and Anisimova. I know that the crowd at Wimbledon is a little bit older, on the older side, but I'm sorry, if you're on the older side and you know things are going to get hotter, you know, global warming's happening, stay your tail home. Don't be passing out. And I know this might sound insensitive. I am low-key joking, but still, like, stay home. Don't hold up play, because we don't got time for this. Men's tennis is already long enough with the best of 5 sets. Let's get a move on. Anyways, Jannik Sinner, he will join Alcaraz, of course, in the final. He defeated Novak Djokovic 6-3, 6-3, 6-4 within an hour and 55 minutes to reach his maiden Wimbledon final. And Sinner, he became the second player after Rafa Nadal to now beat Novak Djokovic 5 times in a row, and he has now won 9 straight sets against the Serbian. I'm not going to analyze this match as much because it just simply comes down to, or at least a lot of it came down to, Novak wasn't physically fit enough to have a chance to beat Jannik. I think he still would have beaten most other top players despite how compromised he was with his movement. But Jannik, simply, he's the best in the world for a reason. But I just feel like Jannik is better than Novak is, at least right now, and than him in every single aspect that there is. Novak, I knew that it just wasn't going to be pretty from him because he wasn't looking that good in his practice session. He wasn't moving around at all, a lot at least, and he did postpone his practice the day before. And looking at him and his movement throughout the match, it was just hard for the guy to push off, especially to his right. And a lot of times Novak just kind of gave up on points. Even when he still had a decent shot at like retrieving, his movement is one of his biggest assets out there, even on the grass. So if he didn't have that, there was no shot of him to beat Jannik on today, just simple as that. Novak, he did kind of employ somewhat of a similar strategy as what he did at Roland Garros in trying to pull the trigger a little bit earlier and finish points as soon as possible. Of course, that makes sense, but it just was not working for him today. And I think a lot of it too was his movement and not being able to put himself in position, like footwork wise. And what's interesting is that all rallies, 9+ shots went to Jannik in the opening 2 sets. Of course, if y'all don't know, Novak, while match point up, he slipped and hurt his leg, and he was able to close out that quarterfinal match against Flavio Cobolli, but he even said coming into this one that he doesn't know what the extent of the injury will be until he comes out and plays. Novak called the trainer for that leg injury between the 2nd and 3rd sets, and he did get a little bit of a second wind. He kind of came out on fire in that 3rd set. He did get some help from Jannik, who was definitely he showed some signs of vulnerability there in his first service game of the third set, which is when he got broken. And he was definitely more error prone, especially from that forehand wing. Novak was able to get out to a 3-love lead, and he had a break point for a double break lead, but Sinner was able to escape, and he kind of reined it in and ran away with the match low-key in the end and won 5 games in a row, won the last 5 of 6 games to reach the final. Looking at the stats, I mean, clean match from Jannik, 36 winners, 17 unforced errors, made 74% of his first serves in the box, and won 83% of points whenever he did make that first serve. He also won 63% of his second serve points compared to 17% of second serve points for Djokovic, which is unacceptable. I feel like Novak, he was fine from his first serve, but once he made the second serve, Jannik just made him pay, and that was a big issue for the Serbian. It's really a shame that Novak was not 100% in this match, because I think that while he might not have won, he definitely could have pushed Jannik to 4 sets or 5 sets. He said after the match it wasn't really a pleasant feeling for him out on court. Novak was also asked about, the bad fortune that he's faced this year, especially after tearing a muscle in his left leg in Australia, which forced him to retire during his semifinal match against Alexander Zverev. He said about that, he said, "I don't think it's bad fortune. It's just age, the wear and tear of the body. As much as I'm taking care of it, the reality hits me right now. The last year and a half, like never before, to be honest. It's tough for me to accept that, because I feel like while I'm fresh, when I'm fit, I can still play really good tennis. I've proven that this year. I guess playing best of 5, particularly this year, has been a real struggle for me physically. The longer the tournament goes, the worse the condition gets. I reached the final stages, I reached the semis of every slam this year, but I have to play Sinner or Alcaraz. These guys are fit, young, and sharp. I feel like I'm going into the match with a half tank empty. It's just not possible to win a match like that. It is what it is, It's one of those things I accept and embrace in some way. I deal with the reality in the way that it is and try to make the most of it, I guess." This was really a powerful quote from Novak, and the big takeaway is that it's Alcaraz and Sinner standing between him of getting that 25th major, and he knows it. That's literally it. No one else can challenge him the way that those two can, and they have now, Jannik and Carlos, in both making the finals, is guaranteed to have them winning the last 7 slams being played now, which just goes to show like they're here to stay and their dominance. Looking at the glass half full for Novak fans, he did give some indications that he will be back next year to play at Wimbledon. When asked if it might be his last match on center court, he said, "Hopefully it's not my last match on center court. I'm not planning to finish my Wimbledon career today, so I'm planning to come back definitely at least one more time and play on center court for sure." Those comments sound very drastically different from how he sounded at the end of his Roland Garros semifinal loss to Sinner. Even the reactions were totally different. It literally gave farewell with how he was reacting and waving to the crowd, whereas here he basically said that he's going to come back next year. So I'm wondering if he might skip the clay season, but he definitely feels like this. He said it before. This is his best shot at winning another slam, winning his last slam. So that's probably why he feels like he's more confident in coming back at SW19 at least next year. Another sidebar, really just looking back at this, especially if Jannik goes on to win the title, Grigor getting injured is such a big what if. Of course, Jannik, he could have come back and won that match in 5 sets. It's a shame, again, that the Bulgarian had that injury. He did give an update to fans where he didn't really say when he would return. Honestly, I think it's unlikely that he will return for the U.S. Open. He looked like he might have had a procedure or something done. He was in the hospital bed, but I'm just wishing him all the best for him in his future, because that was really such a heart-wrenching moment to witness. But anyways, moving on to more positive things, we have our second Simkaraz final, and it is very wild to think just how we were begging, before Roland Garros, we were begging for a Sinner Alcaraz Slam final, and now we're being spoiled and getting back-to-back Slam finals between these two. Nike, they came prepared, and the outfits for Jannik and Carlos were for sure lackluster. They had them wearing the same thing as everyone else was wearing. They didn't get their own special kits, but they came prepared, and they had this post. They dropped this post as soon as Jannik won his semifinal of them both, and with a fire caption, I got to give them props, Nike props for sure. It's a general consensus that Alcaraz will be the favorite. He is the 2-time defending Wimbledon champion. He is on a 24-match win streak. He's also 8-4 head-to-head wise over Jannik. Carlitos has won his last 5 matches against Sinner 2, including, of course, the epic Roland Garros final where he saved 3 consecutive match points in the 4th set. On paper, too, Carlos would be considered healthier as the elbow, while Jannik did say after his semifinal win that it's pretty much a non-issue for him at this point. It could rear its ugly head especially if these two do go the distance. Looking at what's on the line for them both, looking at what is on the line for both these two guys, Carlos, he'll be going for the three-peat, of course, and he also will be going to win his first 6 slam finals. Jannik, meanwhile, he is still seeking his first non-hard court slam, and it will put him in contention to clinch the career slam in 2026. And him trying to win Roland Garros next year. I'm anticipating a pretty different match compared to Roland Garros. I think it will honestly be a tad bit less entertaining. And I say that because both these guys have been very methodical on serve. They hardly have been losing points behind their first serves. Carlos, I think, even more so than Jannik. And I think perhaps only a few crucial points will separate these two here. And I feel like definitely this result will come down to who has the better serving day on Sunday. It will be a hot day too, so the serve is going to be firing even more on center court that day. I think quality-wise, it's just going to be such a tough ask for it to match the quality, let alone exceed the quality of Roland Garros final. I think everyone is coming into this one having lower expectations, at least compared to that one, but we are still anticipating for it to be an interesting and intriguing and nail-biting final. There's also quite a bit of a mental aspect for this one. It'll be a huge mental hurdle for Jannik to overcome for sure. He needs this win desperately, the Italian does. I think that Carlos will be okay unless he loses a heartbreaker like Jannik did at Roland Garros, but, you know, there's the line of his dignity on the line, not wanting to lose 6 straight matches against Carlos Alcaraz, really his only kryptonite. And potentially it could be PTSD for Jannik if he is in the position to close out this match. Talking about where center has the advantage, I think that a saving grace for Jannik is that his lone slam win over Carlitos came here at Wimbledon. Yes, it was a while ago, 2022, and Carlos even admitted that they are completely different players than they were back then. But I still think regardless, it'll give center confidence to know that he has beaten Alcaraz before on the grass, despite all the talk about Carlos being the king of grass right now. I think that Jannik actually could be favored here, like in terms of the matchup dynamic on this surface, as Carlos and his defense is not as much of a factor as it was compared to the clay, for sure. And then plus, we all know that Jannik is a better player than Taylor Fritz is, and Fritz was on the verge of pushing Carlos to 5. He really should have. Jannik, I think he would have better taken advantage of those short ball opportunities presented to him, and I'm just saying that if Fritz can push him to 5, why not center push him to 5 and beyond and win and beat him. I also think that while Carlos has been serving strong during the second week of the tournament, his second serve is still slightly more vulnerable compared to Jannik's, and that puts center at more of an advantage because I feel like he would have more success behind his second serve returns compared to Carlitos, and that is huge. Carlos has also had a lot of success with the serve and volley. We saw it against Fritz, against Noria especially, but I'm not so sure that he'll experience the same success coming up against probably like top 2 best returner in the game. Yes, Fritz, he returned solid in that semifinal, but it's still no match to Jannik. So basically, I say all that to say the serve and volley has been a big asset for Carlos that might not be in his favor in this match. And that'll force him to have to come up with something else, perhaps, to topple center. And then I think there's no denying that center will be more motivated to beat Carlitos. I'm not saying that Carlos will just fold, but there is a chance perhaps that Carlos will be a little bit too complacent. We know the guy has developed more of a hunger himself. I'm talking about Alcaraz, but I don't know. I feel like this might be a silly point, but Carlos, he knows that Jannik, he had a tough one losing that Roland Garros final. So maybe he'll feel a little bit sorry, not come out as like hungry as Jannik will. So definitely something to keep an eye out for Sunday's final. And one other thing too is that yes, while Jannik has lost his last 5 matches against Carlos, the last 3 especially, he was in there. Why did I do that? He was in there with Carlos. Not to mention, of course, the match points. We all know that. But Rome, yes, Carlos did run away with the second set, but center had set points in the first set. In Beijing, center was right there. It came down to a third set tiebreak. So it's like a matter of points between these two. Now, talking about Alcaraz and his advantage, I think that for sure if it goes 5, you got to favor Carlos even more. We all know he's notoriously phenomenal at this stage in the 5-setters, 14-1, but also he's been more battle-tested this tournament. We saw it was a similar position at Roland Garros where Carlos came in much more battle-tested than Jannik, who the Italian pretty much cruised through most of his matches in Paris. Yes, Jannik, he was pushed in those. Yes, Jannik did lose the first 2 sets against Grigor Dimitrov, but still, he wasn't able to be tested because Grigor was injured. Carlos, he was tested for sure. For sure, the opening round against Fognini, was tested against Rublev for sure. Definitely tested against Fritz in the semifinals, so that could aid him for sure in this match. Not to mention, if things do go deep, Sinner's elbow could flare up. He's been pretty methodical in these last two matches against Shelton and against Djokovic. Those were pretty comfortable straight sets matches, not too much going on there, but against Carlos, we all know it can be very physical. I also think that Carlos, he has the confidence and not knowing how to lose factor backing him. Some of those matches, especially in Queens, he had no business winning, but he still won them, and that can be huge. I don't think we should underestimate that factor at all of Carlos just having such an aura of invincibility right now with him. He is holding a 20-match win streak, I believe, at Wimbledon, and an overall win streak of 24 in a row. Obviously, I think that the variety will be a huge factor for him. We saw with the drop shots too against Fritz, but also the serve and volley. While I did say that I don't expect him to have as much success that he had against Fritz with the serve and volley, it'll still be helpful for him to change things up against Jannik. And the serve, it's been a bigger asset for him, no doubt. It wasn't as big of an asset for him at Roland Garros, and I do think that for a good part of the match, Sinner sort of outserved Carlos. He had an easier time at his service games than Carlitos did. But here I can anticipate Carlos having more of a routine time with his service games, and that'll only free him up to do better on return. And then two, Carlos has been there, done that, been in the position of reaching back-to-back Wimbledon finals the past 2 years. So not only is he more comfortable on the grass, but he is more comfortable for this particular stage and occasion of playing a Wimbledon final. Being transparent, I'm a bit conflicted, and I'm still like teetering and tottering, because before, when I was like drafting this stuff, I was confident like Alcaraz actually in 4 to win this one. But I do think that, like, once again, grass, we could be surprised by how well Sinner's game translates against Carlitos on this surface. We have not seen it in 3 years, so we could be in for a surprise on Sunday. And two, while I did mention the whole PTSD aspect of it, you know, there is a possibility that it might not even be a factor. Carlos even said himself that he doesn't think it will be a factor. He said after his semifinal win, when talking about facing Jannik, he said, I'm pretty sure he's going to take a lot of things from the French Open final that is going to be better. He's going to be better physically. He's going to be better mentally. He is going to be better prepared on Sunday to give his 100%. I'm not thinking that I have the advantage mentally on Sunday because of that match. So that definitely makes things more interesting to see if Jannik will indeed be better overall to equip and handle this type of moment. And it seems like Carlos is anticipating that to happen, which is good for him as well. I did have Jannik actually beating Carlos before this tournament happened. I know a lot of people were on my neck for that. I think I got to trust my earlier prediction and have Carlos actually take this one and pull off the three-peat. I don't know, man. Like, it was a gut feeling for me at first having Carlos, but now my gut is shifting towards Jannik. I'm going to stick with Carlos because, again, while Jannik did say that the elbow won't be a problem, and for sure it might not be, you never know. Like, one wrong move on the forehand return could cause problems for him. So I think that might be the one thing, like the outlier shifting it in Carlos's favor, but really, once again, it could go either way. I wasn't anticipating for it to be this close for me to call it because I originally thought it was going to be, like, for sure Carlos, but it's going to be a tight one for sure. But all I know is that I'm walking away with this one a winner because I did pick Jannik before the tournament starts. But what I do know is that I'm walking away a winner because I did pick Jannik over Carlos before the tournament started. So even if Jannik does end up winning, I'm going to be right. And even if Carlos ends up winning, I'm going to still be right. So Christian is a winner at the end of the day. That is all I have for this Wimbledon men's final preview and my Wimbledon semifinal analysis. And let me know y'all's thoughts on the semifinals we witnessed and whether you do think that Novak will return at Wimbledon next year. Also, do you think it is time for Novak to hang it up? I know it's always a conversation. Whenever Novak loses in a semifinal, it's always he needs to hang it up. Really, I don't think so. Like, why? Yes, it really is just about injuries, but the fact that he's still making semifinals, like, and at this age, 38, is incredible. I don't think he should hang it up. I think he has definitely at least 1 or 2 more seasons in him, but it's really all about him and his motivation. But anywho, let me know your thoughts on that, and also, of course, drop your predictions for this Sinner Alcaraz final. Let me know whether you agree with me in having Alcaraz win, or do you think that Jannik will get his redemption. Again, make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell so you are notified whenever I post my men's final recap and analysis video on Sunday. Thank you all so much for watching and for your support, and I will see you all next time here on Christian's Court.